Hello and welcome once more to Dul Johnson's Creative Talks. I have come back to the talk about the value of literature, the need for the arts to be promoted, and in particular for literature to be given attention because of its value to the society. Now, I'm coming back specifically for a discussion of Professor Ni Osundere's My Lord, Where Do I Keep Your Bride? Hello and welcome again to Dul Johnson's Creative Talks. Are you a newcomer to our channel? If you are, please advise you to like and subscribe to this channel. It's going to do you a lot of good. But even if you are a regular viewer, I still want you to continue to share as much as possible. And please post for me questions that you have, because I really believe that this channel is important. And what we're discussing is going to be useful not to you alone as a person, but to our Nigerian community. So, I launch into the issue of the discussion of this particular poem. I had a question from a teaching colleague of mine who wondered why I wouldn't have the time to discuss the entire poem that we had discussed in one of the episodes, which is Neo Sundare's poem that I've just talked about. So, I'm going to try to explain once more and then to take a couple of stanzas to deal with in this particular episode. This is what I want you to understand. Why is literature necessary? Why is literature important? In a number of episodes, I have discussed the fact that this is the medium that helps the reader, the person who engages in literature, to develop critical thinking. My argument is that literature is important to the point that those who read stories, travel to places, know a lot of things, develop critical thinking, see life in very different ways. But also therein is where they see where writers try to solve society's problems. So this colleague wanted me to discuss this poem, if possible, line by line or stanza by stanza, so that students can understand. But I'm thinking that it is not just for students, for every viewer of mine. At the risk of repeating, let me say, or let me explain how literature works. You see, if literature serves society as we claim, why is it that our society is not changing as it is expected? Now, by our society here, he meant the Nigerian society. Of course, this channel is not for Nigerian society alone, so we are not going to define literature based on the Nigerian perspective. But it is important that we understand this, that a society that can benefit hugely from literature is a society that reads. That's number one. Now, reading is not enough. By reading, by a reading society, we're talking about, if you have a population of, say, 100 million grown-ups in your society, and only 10 million read, that's not a reading society. So if you have 100 million grown-ups and 70, 80 million read, of course, that's a reading society. Even if it is 50 million, that's a reading society. So that means that society is going to be very enlightened. Now, so reading is one aspect. Understanding is another aspect. It is not every reader that is equipped, with the talent or the devices or the knowledge of reading and understanding everything that is in the text. So that is why we teach literature in schools at the secondary level and at the university level. I once read an article that asked the question, is literature necessary at the university level? Of course, I've been answering that question with my students all the time. It is absolutely necessary because those are the people who are going out to form the society, to work in the society, to lead the society. If they cannot read and understand and appreciate and see the suggestions, the messages, the solutions, the problem solvings that the writers are pushing in the work, if they cannot get that, then the society is doomed. So the idea in teaching right from secondary school up to the university level is so that we can equip them with the facility that can aid them in reading and understanding. And that is why literary criticism is taught. And that is why researches are also done, or literary criticism is done and published so that more and more people can get into the text. So the writer, by his profession, by their profession, will write to entertain you, to give you a message, but they use devices that can make you enjoy, but at the same time can make you crack your brain. So it helps you to develop the thinking ability, but at the same time, there is also the need for many writers to protect themselves. And so they write in such a way that their message is veiled in such a way that you have to take some time, to study the text several times to be able to crack it, or to get somebody, or to learn from somebody who has been trained, to explain what is in a text for you to be able to understand. And I've explained the reason for that as well in previous episodes. I mean, if writers were to just go very plain, of course, they will develop for themselves a whole battalion of enemies who can, shoot them on the street, not just even look for them and jail them. Because if you are dealing, say, with people in power, for example, I mean, most of the problems that people face in society is as a result of failure of leadership in most cases. So many times you find writers writing about society's problems and looking at those who are supposed to solve the problem and who are failing to solve those problems. Poetry is a genre of literature that actually thrives mostly by veiling the message. Poetry, as we know, well, those of you or those of us who are into literature, those of us who read or teach, we know that poetry's strength is not simply in the expression that is put down there. No, it is in the images, it is in the sounds, it is in the choice of words, it's in the arrangement of words, right? It is constructed in such a way that you really have to do, if I may say so, some kind of mathematics with sounds and images, sounds and pictures to be able to put two and two together to make four. So we are going to attempt now to look at Ni Osundere's poem, My Lord, Where Do I Keep Your Bride? So let's deal first with the first stanza of the poem. So let's go. The stanza goes something like this. The question was, where do I drop your bride? So do I drop it in your venerable chamber? Now, look, First of all, in the title, the poet talked about keeping your bribe. What is a bribe? Of course, is the product, is the process of corruption, isn't it? Bribe, as in anything that is given to you, okay, as an inducement, so that you do not do what you're supposed to do rightly. Okay? Now, would the judges, since this is my Lord, first of all, remember that the people that we call my Lord are the judges, right? The justices of any nation, because they are the ones that when we go before them, of course, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord, and so on and so forth. So, that, my Lord, think about it. It means that these are people that we are already equating with God, right? Because it's only God we know as our Lord. Okay? Ordinarily, in all human societies. But now that we are talking about human beings as lords, that means we are equating them with God. So, what do we expect from such people? What do we expect? Even if they were not justices, we expect the best of treatment as human beings who are looking after us. Even if you are just a colleague of mine and you're supposed to deal with me, you must deal with me fairly. That's what is expected. Not to talk of you are my boss or that I've come before you with a case. Think about even if you were a medical doctor, for example, and I've come with a case for you to address, look at. I am not well, I've come. Would you just treat me anyhow? No. So my Lord is expected to be of the best in terms of integrity, in terms of, relationship with whoever you are dealing with, and so on and so forth. So about judges. Now, so to now ask you, in the first line, he talks about, do I drop it? Think about that word. Keep and drop, are they the same? No. So to drop something suggests either it is something that is heavy or it is something that probably you want to do in a hurry because you don't want anybody to see it, right? Okay, and then he's talking about dropping it, to drop it in your venerable chamber. Well, what does that mean? Venerable is something that is highly, highly respected, right? If you want, a holy place, right? Especially when you talk about the Lord, get down to where the Lord is, must be a very, very holy. I mean, think about that. And that's what the word venerable means, right? So the chamber where the my Lord sits is supposed to be the most pleasant place anybody would want to be in. The calmest of places anybody would want to be. Where only the most righteous things happen, isn't it? Yeah, but we're talking about dropping a bribe. Are we dealing with people who give us justice out of the way? That's just the first line. Now, think about carry the booty. What is a booty? A booty actually is stolen property. You go to, it's usually used in cases of war, for example, situations of war, where you have gone, conquered people or killed people, and then, of course, you steal whatever you can find, especially precious things that you can take away. Booty, in the first place, which is qualifying the money that is to be taken to the my Lord. That tells you, what is it? It is dirty, whatever you have carried as booty, be it money, be it jewelry, be it whatever. It is not something you earn, right? Now, again, to talk about immaculate mansion. Okay, there are mansions that can actually be immaculate, right? To be immaculate is to say it is impeccably clean. It is, I mean, I lack words to express it easily enough for you, but think of the best, the cleanest. We talk about people dressed in immaculate, I mean, appearing in immaculate dress, especially when it is clean white, ironed, and you're looking as if you just dropped from heaven like an angel. That is what immaculate means, even in ordinary terms. So that's the word that is being used for the mansion of somebody who is living on bribes or living on booties. Now, so you can see the picture that the poet is painting for us is quite an extremely, extremely dirty picture. I talked about images in the introductory part. Picture the irony in the juxtaposition, the words that are chosen, and what the poet is using them for. So it's telling you that we are dealing with a person or with persons who ought to be like this, but this is how they are. Right? Let's move on to the next line. Should I bury it in the capacious water tank? To bury. Think about that. What do we bury? Something that is gone bad. Right? Are we together? Are you listening to me? When you bury something, it's gone for good. Right? Something that is, rotten, spoiled, whatever. So, he is looking at the money, the heavy money that is being carried to you as rotten, to be buried in a tank. Now, think about, I mentioned the fact that we are talking about a particular, well, in this case, he is talking about a particular community. And I said, you may be thinking, this is not to say this is limited to Nigeria. No. Every country in the world has its own corrupt practices or persons or whatever. But in our own case, you see, the poet or the writer looks at his own environment to draw his images. So this tank mention is something that we have actually experienced in Nigeria in life. We have heard of people who have stolen millions, billions, and have kept them in tanks that by some accident water has, dripped in and destroyed the money completely. To bury money. I mean, those ones that we have seen the pictures that were dug out of those tanks because they became rotten. Of course, they were as good as buried, and it is already rotten material. Can anybody use it? No. And is water tank a place to keep money? No. But in reality, we have seen it happen. So now the water tank in itself is now considered as a place where terrible things happen. Where we're supposed to get water for life, we are now using it as a grave for dirty things. Look at the combination of images in those very simple words that the poet is using. This is what our, our lords, the people that we ought to respect the most, the people that are the top, echelon of the society, who should be dispensing justice and anything good that we can think about. This is who they are. This is what they are. What a picture we're getting. Let's move on to the next line. Put the bribe in the water tank. Should I put it in your well-laundered backyard? A well-laundered backyard. Number one, the word laundered means two different things, but they apply very well here. And this word is is chosen. I mean, it's a perfect choice, and its two meanings will tell us a lot here. People wash clothes and then launder them, right? You iron them. You first take out the dirt and then you iron them, and they look immaculate, right? Okay? But think about the other word that means the opposite. Think about it. Maybe you want to share it with other people if you have a problem thinking about it. To launder is to steal money and spend it in such a way that you want to make people believe that this is legitimate money. That is what money laundering means. So you've stolen money, that huge sums of money, and then you launder it by, say, going to buy this, buy that, buy that, buy that, and then turn them into business, and you begin to call it your business empire. And because you think that because you have done that, we will now see you as a business magnate, you are developing society. So how is that? So look at the juxtaposition of, I mean, the meaning of the word. To launder. He's talking about your backyard as laundered, which is to say, it's either that it has been poisoned by or depositing terrible things, or it is well manicured, and yet within that same place we have a lot of rot. Right? Okay, so I want to move now to the last line in the stanza. Or will it breathe better in the septic tank? You all know what a septic tank is. I don't need to explain it. And except, of course, we are talking about flies or cockroaches, no human being, nothing that is, of good, that's supposed to have good health, can live in a septic tank and live well, because the stench that comes. So even you who are going to go in there to put the bribe, are you going to come out a healthy person? No. So putting it in the septic tank, of course, is saying, in other words, perhaps because it is a product of stealing, is the product of loot, is corruption, maybe the septic tank is the best place for it. Let's drop it there. This is dirt upon dirt. This is rot upon rot. That's one way the poet is putting it. And then he says, since money can deodorize the smelliest crime. He didn't say the smelliest shit, the smelliest crime. Now, crime doesn't smell. But we're talking of septic tank. What's in the septic tank? Of course, it's a lot of mess, right? So the money is now equivalent to what is in the septic tank. And that is the crime, right? So by saying money can deodorize, of course, because we believe those who engage in this kind of criminality believe that money can solve problems, right? Money can turn wrong into right. Okay? And the poet puts it the other way. Money cannot cannot turn wrong into right. Stealing money, maybe good money, money that you have labored for and may solve a problem. But stolen money is adding salt to injury, as we would say in ordinary parlance, right? Now, I hope that I have been able to help you understand just this stanza. You see, if I'm going to go stanza by stanza for this long poem, it's going to take us weeks, but maybe we will have to do that. Because as I said, it was requested of me to explain this so that more people will understand. I just want to leave you with a few words that if you are afraid of poetry, the way, actually not just the idea, the way to read and understand poetry is to read it as many times as possible. Play with the words. Check the dictionary. See whether the words make sense. If they don't, close the text, leave it for some time. Come back to it. Ask other people to help you. I mean, you will begin to enjoy poetry if you begin to understand how to analyze poems, stanza by stanza or line by line. With this, I want to leave you, my great viewer, and I thank you for having been part of this journey. If you, as I said, are a newcomer, subscribe and share. Thank you.